Hello, everybody, and welcome. I am Elizabeth Bernhard. I have the pleasure of serving as the Executive Director of the Manufacturing Growth Alliance, or MGA. MGA is a statewide, Michigan based trade association championing, serving, and advocating for Michigan's small to medium sized manufacturers. And I'm really excited to have you join us for this conversation featuring ProShop ERP and Hipschman Screw. And our event is called Passing the Torch, Building a Business Your Kids Won't Want to Run From. We are going to be talking about the journey of Hipschman Screw, highlighting their strategies for long-term growth and how they've leveraged ProShop ERP to streamline their operations and set the stage for the next generation. While we're going through the presentation, if you are a Michigan-based manufacturer, there is a grant opportunity that you may not have heard about. It is called the Industry 4.0 Grant Initiative. It is a statewide Michigan-based grant providing manufacturers with up to $25,000 in funding for Industry 4.0 hardware and software costs. And if you have not received this grant before in Michigan, the funds were just replenished by the Michigan Economic Development Corporation, and ProShop ERP would be an eligible technology for this grant. So if you are a Michigan manufacturer and you have not taken advantage of this grant, please follow up with me so I can give you some more information. We will also enter this into the chat so you can directly go to our webpage to learn about this grant. With that, I would like to introduce my colleague, Jen DeMud.
Elizabeth.
Hi there.
Hi, everyone.
And Jen serves as our Chief Operating Officer at Connexus Group. A few housekeeping items. This session is being recorded, and we will be sharing this out on social media after the event. In addition to all of those who registered for the event, we will be sending you a copy of the recording as well as the slide deck from today's presentation. Near the end of the presentation, like with most webinars, we have time scheduled for Q&A. While we are going through the event, if you have questions, please put them into the Q&A so we can get to them during that time. In addition, during the Q&A portion, if you would like to personally be allowed to ask the question yourself, simply raise your hand and Jen will unmute you so you can ask the questions personally. With that, I'm happy to introduce you to my two panelists, Paul Van Meter, co-founder of ProShop ERP. ProShop dramatically improves efficiency because it focuses on improving the execution of manufacturing shop processes, which yields dramatic labor and cost savings, including total labor savings of 25% or more. And Chad Vanderbeek is the president of Hipschman Screw Machine Products, located in Union, Michigan, near the Michigan-Indiana border. Hipschman is a major screw machine products manufacturer and supplier in the Midwest area, supporting numerous industries, including automotive, recreational vehicles, marine, military, industrial, and more. With that, Chad and Paul, I welcome you.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Thanks, Jen.
Thank you. Thanks for having
us. To be here. Yeah. Thanks for inviting us to come do this with your audience. Looking forward to it.
Happy to have you.
All right. Well, fantastic. Well, let's dig in, folks. So as Elizabeth said, I'm Paul, one of the co-founders of ProShop. Just delighted to be joined by Chad, a great customer and friend, all for sure. So Chad, you ready to dig in and talk about passing the torch?
I sure am. Nothing gets me more excited.
I'll start by sharing with people that the idea about this actually came from a podcast that you and I did together, where it kind of clicked that you had said that, Hipschman was kind of on a path that you were not as happy about. So we'll get into that in a minute here, but we'll start with just a little bit of background and a little bit about ProShop. This is mostly going to be about Hipschman, but I always like to start our webinars with our mission statement. And we've got this picture of you volunteering at our IMTS booth just last month. It was such a good time. So our mission is this: we deliver powerful manufacturing software by deeply understanding our clients' challenges in order to meaningfully improve their businesses and in turn their communities. And I really think we've hit the mark, with Hipschman here on this one. I know I was talking to one of your teammates, Daniel, at NTMA last week, and just hearing the impact of just the growth and success of Hibschman, which thankfully ProShop has been a part of, has been really an amazing thing to hear. So just a little bit about ProShop. So ProShop was originally conceived as a product to help run a company that I started back in the year 1997 with my partners. That's the group of us right here, straight out of college. We just started working on spreadsheets and started with a single CNC machine. And about 3 years in, we had grown quite a bit to about 12 employees, and those spreadsheets were just not working for us. So we decided to write a software program after going out on the market and not finding anything we thought was worth buying. So in the year 2000, we started writing ProShop, and then we just kept running our business for many years to come, and really with not ever intending to sell ProShop. But about 16 years later, we did sell the manufacturing company and started ProShop. And these are the things that we try to solve for our customers. And I know we'll get into some of these things today with Chad. So let's get into our agenda. We're going to talk about the background of why Chad didn't think his business was worthy to pass down to his kids, perhaps. We're going to talk about some of the other great things that Chad's been doing: some business coaching, obviously the ProShop side, new equipment, investing in memberships, and really leaning into that, and just the whole thing that Chad's done to sort of really transform this business. So Chad, let's start by talking a little bit about the background. Just share maybe as you a bit of the background of the whole company, and then when you took it over, and sort of from there on.
Yeah. So the company itself, Hibschman's been around for 57 years. We started over in Elkhart, Indiana, and then my dad and Mike Hibschman bought the company back in 1981. And Mike Hibschman was a big farmer. I don't know how many acres he owns around Union, Michigan, but quite a few. And they bought the company and relocated to Union, Michigan. My dad was always the sales guy. His background was he was a steel salesman for AM Castle and LaSalle Steel. And then Mike was the machinist. And that worked out really well for them. They did, I think at their height, they probably had about 50 machines, which is what I inherited when I came on board here. All Acme Gridley, so everything was turning. Acme Gridley multi-spindles, and then Brown and Sharp single spindles. And I came on board. Well, I've been here since I've been about 1.5 feet tall, sweeping floors. But I've officially been collecting a paycheck here for the last. I think I just turned 19 years.
Wow.
So for myself, obviously I'm first and foremost, I've got a beautiful wife and 4 beautiful kids. And that's what guides me in running this shop. And, but I've been here for 19 years, started in sales, and then worked my way up. So in 2020, I became president. And since that point, it's been quite the journey, especially in the last 2 years.
Mm-hmm. So can you just maybe describe a little bit, besides the 50 machines, I see there's no preventative maintenance program, a lot of secondary operations. Yeah. I know you said the place was not particularly clean. So just to maybe paint the picture of a little bit more of what it was like when you took it over.
Yeah. So when I took over, it was, those 3 Ds, right? The dark, dirty, and dangerous. Probably had to wear your special shoes in here so you wouldn't either slip or trip and like I said, at one point at our height, we had 50 machines, and then we had an entire secondary operation. So that was before our Swiss machines came on board. Mm-hmm. So for our secondary operations, right, if there was any cross holes, we were drilling those out by hand. Any cross threading, we were drilling it out by hand. back chamfering, right? Things that we take for granted now that we can just drop the part complete in a Swiss machine.
Right.
You couldn't do that.
Right.
And so a lot of labor, a lot of sweat and tears, no blood, right? But a lot of sweat and tears
Yeah.
went into to getting those parts out. And I think in 2018 we invested in our first CNC machine, which was a CNC mill.
Mhm.
And we were, for our secondary department, we were doing a lot of work that just, when I look at it now, especially with ProShop, I'm like, there's no way we were profitable on those items.
Right.
But I think that kind of proves my point now. But back in 2018, I had a hunch, right? Like we weren't making money on this stuff.
Uh-huh.
And we bought our first CNC mill. So we were still doing the secondary operations, but we put it in a mill. And so a lot of those operations that took us 2 weeks to do by hand, right, on a manual mill, or a drill press, now we were getting done from 2 weeks down to 2 days. I'm like, okay, now we're moving in the right direction. This is the way to go. So that really started our movement into our growth.
Yeah. Very good. And as we said at the agenda, you've invested in doing a lot of different things, including our really good friends, Mike and Dave at EBITDA Growth Systems. I'd love to have you just touch a little bit on what this has meant to you.
Yeah. So, like I said, our real journey started about 2 years ago, where the growth really started to take off. And Mike and Dave were probably the first ones that I contacted. And so they're our consultants that we use. Dave himself was a machinist, so he has a background in machining, specifically Swiss machining. And then he worked for some big manufacturing companies throughout the United States. And so he a couple of years ago he decided he didn't want to do that anymore, and he teamed up with Mike, doing coaching. And what they do, they focus specifically on machine shops. And so I think I heard them talk, you and them, I think, on like a Making Chips podcast maybe, and went down a rabbit hole on listening to these guys. They have their own podcast as well. And I'm like, these guys are my cup of tea, right? Like these are my people. And I took at the time what I thought was a big risk, and man, did that pay in spades with these guys.
Yeah, and I know they do, as it says here, bi-monthly coaching calls, one on operations, one on sort of finance, and we've created a bunch of dashboards and other things within ProShop specifically for EGS clients like yourself, and we have many shared clients, so can really just sort of refine, what you're doing to make your business, more high performing, more profitable.
Yeah, I think when it really took off with these guys, when we ended up getting ProShop, before it was difficult for us to speak to the business, just because the questions that they were asking, I couldn't answer. I could assume, but I couldn't really answer it. But once we dove in with ProShop, it made things a lot easier and our trajectory a lot, more vertical.
Got it. Okay, very good. And their growth summit is coming up next week, which I'm heading off to.
Yeah.
All right, and then ProShop. So let's dig into that a little bit. So just tell us, maybe starting at the beginning of deciding to choose ProShop, and sort of what that journey's been like, what the impact's been like. Yeah.
So to start off with ProShop, again, it was maybe 2 months after we brought EBITDA Growth Systems up alongside us, and it was right around that COVID time frame, right? And I went back to school to get my machine tool technology degree, and so and those were always like in the morning. And there was about 8-week time frame where I wasn't part of the production meetings. And it's sort of like when you're in it, you don't see it, right?
Right. Yeah.
Like you walk around how many times has somebody walked around the shop, and you see that, I don't know, that light that's out, but you don't even think about it until somebody else comes along and you're like, you gonna change that light bulb, Sort of the same principle, right? Like I was in these meetings every day, and they made sense at the time, but allowing me to step away from those daily production meetings for 8 weeks and then come back into it, I just realized how much chaos there was, right? There was people that we just weren't able to make decisions. No fault of anybody's in particular. It was just, we didn't have the data and the more particularly the live tracking information on all of our routings to know when it needed to go to the operation, right? Or it would be finished with an operation, but then it would just sit there for a couple of days before it would go off to plating, right? And so those days mounted, right? So if you went from like an op 50 to, and then it would sit for 2 days, and then go to op 60, that would get complete, and then it would sit for 2 days. And that time in between just adds up. And so, I think our biggest thing was we went from on-time delivery of about 75% to today, our 12-month average is 94.4%.
Amazing.
And that happened extremely fast. That was my first aha moment, I think, with ProShop for sure.
Right.
Versus this year, right? You got on there that increased our bottom line 2x, right? So that's the stuff that me and my leadership team here has really dove into this year of killing the losers. We love to play the game of kill the losers.
Yeah.
Every shop's got those jobs where you're losing money on it. And so we've my team has done an excellent job of going through and identifying those and then figuring out what to do with them, right? Are we either going to figure out a way to increase our efficiency, our throughput, our cycle time?
Yep.
If we can't do that, then okay, we need to have a conversation with the customer. And speaking of the cut, right, we use ProShop as a sales tool for us as well. But our shop floor team absolutely loves ProShop. I think when we started, I was, if you asked me at the beginning, who was going to be more difficult, the office or the shop people, I would have said the shop people. And that was absolutely not true. Our shop people were more in tune with it than our office people were. And that made it super simple to implement the ERP system.
Yeah. And it says here you even have had maybe a little bit of attrition in the office, but you are dealing with quite a bit more volume of work and still handling it all okay.
Yes. Yep. Haven't lost a beat. And in fact, we've become more efficient in the office as well.
Right.
Even
so
from,
does that cut down the lead time of things that the office typically does? So the shop actually has more time to do the manufacturing process?
Yeah, I think for me personally, because I'm in it every day. But I think one of the biggest things for us is that we're able to get responses to our customers faster. These days, people want a response in 2 hours or less, right? And we're not perfect. I'm not saying that happens all the time, but it is quite noticeable, our difference in our response time to the customer.
Yeah.
We're not waiting days.
Sure.
They're waiting hours.
Yeah. And I think you had, when we did our podcast, you had mentioned, or maybe it was just a conversation we had, I can't remember, but you were talking about one of these part numbers that you realized you were kind of underwater on and couldn't improve the process enough to make it profitable. So you had to raise the price, and you were concerned that if you raised it as much as you needed to, they were just going to take the work and go somewhere else. But because you showed them ProShop and showed them all the costs and were very transparent with real data, what happened in that scenario?
Yeah, so I brought in ProShop. I put it up on his, logged in my computer to his TV, and we just broke it down. I pulled up one of the dashboards, was very transparent of, we were losing, on the one job, it was $15,000. And, he wanted a price reduction, of course. And I was like, I can't do it. Right. And so in ProShop, I'm like, this is why I can't do it. Right. And, but yeah, we use that as a sales tool. And long story short, they came back a month later and have reordered. So they're still ordering from us
at the new higher price.
at the new price. Yeah.
Oh, it's such a win. That's awesome. And it sounds like you're using ProShop for some other things, including training employees, which we'll talk about a little bit later because we have a screenshot of your onboarding work order. But yeah, very cool. Thank you for sharing all that.
Yeah.
If anything Chad talked about is spurring any questions, please go ahead and drop those in the Q&A. And we'll get to those at the end. So yeah, tell us about this Michigan Manufacturing Technology Center audit.
Yeah, so Michigan Manufacturing Technology Center came out last summer. I heard of them through University of Notre Dame, actually. And so, I'm a guy that's always curious. And so, I wonder what these guys do. And so, so I called him up, and Mark Gettle came out, and he spent half a day in our shop, just looking for things for us to upgrade on from an Industry 4.0 standpoint. Mm-hmm. And he spent, of that time, he probably spent half of his time looking at ProShop. He was absolutely in awe with ProShop and the data that was able to provide us, and the power that it gave us to operate. But anyways, he, didn't say it other than the ProShop stuff. He didn't say a whole lot. He was with another guy that said, he had done about 85, I think, assessments.
And this was specifically an Industry 4.0 assessment to see where you were.
Yep.
Okay.
And so Mark and the other gentleman came back, and the other gentleman said, I've done 85 of these assessments, and I can hands down say that you are within like the top 5% of all assessments I've done. And I mean, when you think about it, right? Like we went from in a matter of less than 10 years, this dark, dirty, dangerous place to this guy's telling me I'm, doing everything right.
That's amazing, Chad. So cool.
So yeah, it was, Mark said, he's like, I got good news and I got bad news. He's like, good news is that you're already doing everything that I recommended, or that I would normally recommend. He said, the bad news is that, I don't have any new recommendations for you. And okay. He's like, the only thing that I can recommend is, maybe do a little 5S. And, right. But he's like, you have all the things in place that we recommend in our assessments. And, wow. I think 90% of that was with ProShop, just because of what we were able to do with ProShop.
Sure. That's cool. And what's so funny when I think about that, the tools you were using and the features that you're using to, probably get that high assessment are things that ProCNC designed in the early 2000s. Like, our shop was basically, besides we weren't a Swiss and multi-spindle shop, we were using all the same functions that, no job travelers and all the dashboards and all the things in like 2002 or 3, once we'd really started building out all those modules in ProShop. So
it just looks a little prettier now, probably.
It does. Oh, it's way prettier now. And it's even getting prettier yet in the next version. So awesome. And let's talk about your equipment. Obviously you were using some really solid, amazing older equipment, but then you brought a bunch of new pieces.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, right, at our height on equipment wise, we had 50 pieces of equipment in our shop. Since then, we've gotten rid of 14. I just went through and counted. We're down to 36 machines today. Mm-hmm. And we've still got our Acme Gridleys. We still got our Brown & Sharps. and so I think we've got about 17 Acme Gridleys, and those things just spit out parts, right? Every 6 seconds. And we've got a great young group of talent out there that is continuing to drive the efficiencies on those. And then the new pieces of equipment that we brought in is Swiss machines. That's been our bread and butter for new equipment bringing in.
Right.
Those Swiss machines, just they may not be as fast as the Brown and Sharps. So we're doing lower volume production runs on those, equivalent to the work that we'd be putting on the Brown and Sharp single spindles. And they may not be as fast, but man, they're efficient. And the throughput, right? We've got bar feeders hooked up to them. We've got chip conveyors, make it easier for the operators to do their work. Have them have the ability to do more value add stuff than cleaning chips out of the machines.
Right.
And on top of that, once we do get those parts dialed in, we're running them lights out or lights dim is what we call.
Right.
And so our throughput has gone through the roof on those.
Nice. And obviously that's where you'd put parts that have, milling or drilling details that are, that would be a secondary operation in the past.
Yeah.
And if it's just a straight round part and higher volume, it's going on the older machines.
Correct. Yep.
Got it.
Yep. Yeah. So all those parts that we were doing in secondary are dropped complete now off of our Swiss machine.
Nice. It's a good combination.
Yep.
Awesome. And then you also, maybe because of the 5S or whatever, you really went into a lean journey as well as doing some more structured training. And I know we're going to talk about the memberships a little bit more after this, but yeah, tell us about that aspect of the changes you made.
Yeah, so I think that kind of, I might be jumping a little ahead here, but to me, our success journey coincides strictly with our the emerging leaders, the leadership development program that I put two of my guys through. That they're the ones that picked the rags up off the floor that were the low hanging fruit, and they've just ran with it. So probably over the last year and a half, we've really dove into our success journey. We've still got a long ways to go. But man, if our shop does look completely different than it did even 2 years ago, 3 years ago.
Right.
Drums used to be everywhere. We use fiber drums for some of our parts, and those would just be laying everywhere. Those aren't anywhere anymore, right? Our floors are getting scrubbed twice a week. Our bathrooms are getting cleaned 3 to 4 times a week. And everybody plays a part. And we've done a really good job of maintaining that using the equipment module in ProShop.
Right.
For us in the past, right? Like everybody has these expectations of, we're going to go clean this, right? The cleaning part's the easy part. The sustaining part is the hard part.
Yep, that's where it falls down usually.
Like how can you close that loop? And we've done a really good job of closing that loop by creating in the equipment module in ProShop everything that needs to be done, and the checks that need to be done weekly, and making people accountable.
Right.
And then we close the loop through that by I think it's right now, we've got it every 14 days where during our production meeting, they're going through and making sure that these things are being done.
Nice.
And if they're not, right, everybody falls off the wagon at some point, right? If they're not, it's getting back on the wagon. Hey, I see we haven't done this in, 14 days. What do we got to do how can we help, right? What do we got to do to get us back on the train?
Fantastic.
And so ProShop has done a great job of helping us sustain our success journey.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. We don't have any pictures of that. Should have thought about that, but yeah, we did the same thing. We would take pictures of an area, showing what it should look like with everything 5S and put away, and then set a schedule and for whether it's weekly or 2 weeks or every day, and put someone in responsible. They get reminders, show up on their their
Yep.
Pro Shop,
Yep.
inbox and dashboards, and
Yep.
just help do that reminder, because even the people with the best intentions get busy and forget. So,
yep. And now we're taking it to the next level, actually, with our OSHA stuff.
Nice.
Doing the same thing with our safety,
Nice.
Safety procedures as well. Just putting it into, okay, fire extinguishers need to get checked every 30 days,
Yep.
right? We're putting that check into Pro Shop, making somebody responsible for that check. So he's going to get a reminder every 30 days. Hey, go check the fire extinguishers and check it off, right?
Perfect. Yeah, you want those OSHA audits to go well.
Yep.
Let's talk a little bit about employee onboarding and training.
Yeah. So we just started this maybe 3 months ago.
Okay.
I think it was you and I talked about it originally we did an implementation podcast at one point.
Yeah.
We talked about this, but I finally got to implement it about 3 months ago.
Nice.
And so, it's creating, when we hire a new person, there's always certain things that you need to go through, every time when they start. And before we never had a documented process. We've got, a great, office manager here in Leslie, and she's been here for 30 years, and does a fabulous job, and she knows this stuff on the back of her head. But we've taken that and broken it down into a work order.
Right.
And so, all of our eligibility forms that they need to sign, we've got those all in there now. The shop tour, we can click on the shop tour, and then it gives a breakdown, like a written description of, hey, these are the things we need to hit on the shop tour, right? Where the first aid kit is, where the bathrooms are, right? Like just all the way down to, our safety trainings, certainly our Pro Shop trainings, and then, quality training, lean training, right? Like it just simplifies it so much so we don't oversee anything. And not only on top of that, but a lot of this stuff, where we would have to maybe sit down with them, they can do on their own now. So, if they've got their machines are all running, and they're looking for something to do, they can log in here, and knock out a few trainings on their safety training. Right. So it puts the power back into the employee. And so we've done that. We've had 2 hires since then. It's made it a lot smoother, getting them up to speed faster on what needs to be done.
I love this whole concept. Quite honestly, I don't think we use work orders to onboard employees at ProCNC, but we used it for all sorts of other things like buying new machines. And, I've seen a lot of clients do this. It's such a great idea. It's such a systematized process. And then if they're signing things off, obviously we can't see it here, but if you mouse over these check boxes, it'll show you exactly when they signed it off, and that could be used for, proving your safety training stuff and other things. So
we've got videos in here, whether they're our own videos or videos that, Pro Shop videos or, safety training. I can't remember what safety, but, we've got safety training videos in there, right? And just everybody's getting the same message every time, right? It's not varying at all, which is, I think in the long term will be super beneficial. Yeah,
absolutely. And then you're also using it, maybe this is just part of the Pro Shop training, but
there you go.
So
as I mentioned, right, every one of those has its own written description. This is the training for Pro Shop specifically. And you can see the links there to the trainings that that we want them to tackle. Gives them the proficiency level that we want them to be at. There's going to be a quiz at the end of it. And then their supervisor, or manager can sign off on those. And then at the bottom, where I was talking about the videos, we've got links to videos. And then we've created some of our own. So the day in the life of the machinist.
I think that's one of ours.
That's one of yours. That's always one of my favorites, because that was every time I see it, that was our implementation specialist that ran that video, so it always brings a smile to my face.
Nice.
To like how to complete an NCR, we created Scribe tutorials on those,
Yep.
and it kind of gives a click by click process of how to create an if you've got a bad part at the machine, how to create an NCR and get that moving. We've got how to complete an in-process check, right? How you're going to go into ProShop and do that, to how you're going to manage your bombs, and including your time tracking. So this was our first go at it. I'm sure we'll continue to add as we go, but I think we've got a good solid foundation.
I love that so much. Yeah, the training and task module that kind of supports a lot of this, again, has been part of ProShop for a long time, and is just, I think, structurally been just such a smart idea that, and I can't take credit for that one. Kelsey and Matt definitely, were the brainchilds of those. So yeah, pretty cool. Let's talk about memberships. You've been a part of NTMA and PMPA. And obviously through that, some of the specific, emerging leaders, but yeah, just talk more in general about joining these associations.
So my wife started working here again 2 years. I talked about this journey 2 years ago. My wife started working here 2 years ago, part-time. We finally got all of our kids in school full-time. And so she came on board and works about 15, 20 hours a week. But when she came on board, I always had this rolling list that I would, on my drive to and from work every day, that I always, the to-do action items that weren't immediate, but, man, if I had some time, this is what I want to do. Right. And, one of those things was joining an association. And so she went ahead and she signed up for not one, but both of them. And I absolutely love the fact that we belong to both of them. It's each one provides a little bit something different, and unique. And I think it's what makes us unique. I think, for both these organizations, I think somebody told me there's about 14 of us that belong to both.
Oh, yeah.
But the NTMA, is more, you could probably correct me if I'm wrong, but more like a milling, guys that a lot of milling operations or lathe work.
A little more heavy, yeah.
Versus the PMPA is, which is the Precision Machine Products Association, is more turning, right? So Swiss machining, multi-spindle machining, and I know before we joined that, we were, for 17 years, I just thought we were kind of like our own little island. I didn't know any better, right? Nobody taught me that there was other associations out there. And if we did, we didn't want to do that. We don't need to talk to anybody, right? Keep it all in house, right? Don't
want to share your secrets.
And what I learned is that's the farthest thing from the truth, right? These guys from both sides have been so helpful. I've learned that they will, everybody wants to help everybody, right? They will talk about anything except your customer base, right? But, you've got a machine problem. I think both of them have listservs now. You type out, your question on the listserv, and somebody's going to give you a response. Right. I know we were a few months back, maybe a year back, we had a question on threading issue that we were having, right? And within 15 minutes, somebody replied back, "Oh, this is how we do it, right? Try this," right? And so it's really helped my confidence level, not only for me, but for my management team. They go to the management review or management sessions for both the PMPA and NTMA. Matt and Daniel are part of the Emerging Leaders program for the last 2 years now. And it's that stuff that's really, like I always say, ProShop is the foundation of what we do, but this is what has helped us excel. But yeah, just knowing that we're not alone is huge.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. I mean, obviously, we're not a machine shop member of these, but we are members. And yeah, it's so clear how much the membership and the leadership of those just believe in the aphorism that, a rising tide lifts all boats, and we're just they're there to help each other and there to share ideas, shop tours, and and learning sessions, and that's at the national level. And of course, some of the local chapters are really active with lots of other great things. So definitely, for any of those on the audience here that are not members, definitely look into it. They're not expensive. You get so much value for what you get. Yeah, I really wish that back in the day, in the Pro CNC days, we had the wherewithal to join. Because I think we would have been that much more successful. And we also felt like, just like you did, we kind of felt like in a bubble. We didn't really talk to other shop owners, didn't really know how they did things. Obviously, we started our shop right out of college, so we were even extra naive and ignorant about how things are actually done. So, yeah, and just really great.
I think for us, it's the probably the most beneficial thing for me with those organizations is the shop tours that they've allowed us to do, and seeing other people's process.
Yeah.
Right. And so we've been able to pull a little bit from every shop tour that we've been on, a little bit of something from somewhere, and bringing that back to our shop and implementing it. That's probably been the most beneficial.
Yeah. We, I think you and I overlapped, or didn't overlap, but the recent NTMA one. I went to, I got on the tour of PH Horn, the company that makes all the tiny boring bars. Holy cow, that was an amazing tour. What an incredible company. And just seeing something, even just small, can have a big impact in an idea to kick off something that you can do in your business. So. Well, as we start to wrap up here, I'd love to have you already talked about how when you were going back to school and missing those production meetings and coming back and realizing the chaos, can you just bring it back to your family and your kids, and like you had the thought, I don't want my kids to take over the business as it is today, right? And how's that changed?
Yeah, for sure. I think, for me, always thinking long term, right? And I think Ebita Growth Systems has helped me think long term, right? At the end of the day, my first choice is certainly going to be, I've got 4 kids, right? So probability is high that at least one of them is going to want an opportunity to take over the business, right?
Yeah.
And that's my number one hope, right? But if that's not the case, right, I think we're setting our business up for some sort of exit, however that might look, right?
Sure.
And so that's, whichever route you take, I think that, it's not something that can happen on a whim, right? You're not going to be, you shouldn't be thinking about that, 6 months down the road. This is for me, this is a 5, 10, 20 year outlook, right? Of how do I want the shop to look when my kids come of age and want an opportunity to work here and possibly take over ownership, right? And so that's the way that I operate.
I absolutely love it. I think that's, when you shared this idea in our podcast, and maybe Abra can actually share the link in the chat. I just thought it was such a powerful idea that you obviously there's business is always hard, and the machining business in particular is one of the
super
hardest.
Hard. Yep.
But there's still a very big difference in that scale of hard between a business that's just chaotic every day and just super stressful to try to be firefighting all the time, and one that's really quite data and process driven and pretty systematized. But yeah, so I could see why you wouldn't want to throw your kids into the fire of like this crazy, chaotic, always stressful business. And that's yeah, that long term thinking that EGS has helped you with is
for me that's unfortunately that's how I came into the business, and I don't want my kids to have to experience what I experienced. And so it's taken a big cultural shift for us to do that, right? And it just doesn't happen overnight. We're on, especially for our cultural shift, we're on a 8-year journey on that, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
And so that's the way I approach it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, excellent. Well, awesome. Well, I have one question for the audience. This is not for you to answer live, is just to think about. And it's this one. What are you doing today to make sure, just like Chad has done with so many different things, from software and memberships and lean and new equipment and just a culture improvement, what are you doing today to make sure your company is successful in the future? So, I think it's really imperative that all our small and medium-sized manufacturing companies kind of rise to the challenge of what our nation needs and what our industry and economy needs right now. I think the long-term trends for manufacturing in North America are extraordinarily strong, and we don't want businesses to just be closing their doors and selling off their equipment when the owner retires. And we need them to carry on and keep our economy strong. So anyway, just something for you to ponder. And if you think ProShop could be a part of your success, we would love to chat, of course. And now we're going to open up for questions. So Jen, can you help us here with queuing up some questions?
Absolutely. Great conversation. Thank you both. So we do have a few questions that I'd like to propose to both you, Chad and Paul. First one looks like Chad. How long does it take to implement a fully paperless system?
So for us, we started our training process with ProShop in, I think it was end of September. I think by Christmas time we were done with our training, and then
about 3 months.
And then we went away for Christmas break. When we came back in that first or second week of January, we started training the guys on the shop floor, and we were up and live by February.
Okay.
I don't know, Paul, what's your I mean, I felt that was pretty
about
fast.
a 4-month total lead time to be kind of live system of record change. That's right there in the ballpark for a company of your size. Yeah. We've had some that have just expedited it super fast and done it quicker, and some that take a little longer. But yeah, 3 to 4 month range is pretty common.
I think it depends too on like the size of your shop too, right? I would imagine somebody that's smaller with 5 employees is going to be a little bit faster than somebody with 25 employees, right?
Yeah, or 50 or 100. So yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, great question.
Hey Chad, this next one's going to go to you, and then Paul, give you a heads up. The third question will go to you. So Chad, another question. How did you get your team to buy in?
Oh gosh, I kind of break it down into 2 separate age groups, really, right? So you've got the younger generation that was the easy sell, right? The millennials, the Gen Zers, that was you put, when I told them that everybody gets their own laptop in the shop, they're like, what? They were all on board, right? The older generation, which was 50, 55 and older, it was most, there was, one story sticks out to me is, we have multi-generational families that are here, right? And so our lead machinist in Brown and Sharp, I remember having a conversation with him of, he was questioning it, and but he had his son working here, and it was, having a conversation with him about that tribal knowledge, right? He's been working on machines for 40 years, right? And I want to capture that knowledge, put it into ProShop, so his son can continue to do the legacy that he created, right? There were some, I had two individuals that, English wasn't their first language, right? And so just getting them comfortable, and those were the ones that probably struggled the most. There was just a language, I don't want to say a barrier, but, those guys took a little longer. But I think the thing that helped us with them is, look, we're going to do this right alongside you, right? When you get here in the morning, we're going to be here with your computer, and we're going to help you clock in. We're going to help you time track. And I think them seeing that, right? It's one thing to say it, but then to do it is a powerful thing. And I think that really showed our dedication to them, right? Like this isn't something that's, you're a great machinist. If you're struggling with how to turn a computer on, that's not going to deter you from having a job here, right? And so it just varies. But yeah, the younger guys were all on board. And like I said, the guys on the shop floor embraced it a whole lot more than the people in the office, which I thought was going to be completely opposite.
Thank you for that.
There was, I'll just add on, there's something inherent in what you said there, like time tracking. If you weren't in the habit of time tracking already in a different system, that's a whole nother habit that you need to, that you're trying to introduce, which, time tracking in and of itself is such a contentious idea in many shops. Like, why do you want to know what I'm doing all the time? But so I'm sure that was a part of it as well, just that an entirely new behavior, regardless of whether it's on a spreadsheet or a time card or a software or whatever. Yeah.
Hey, Paul, let's send this question to you.
Sure.
The ProShop products, they've been around for about 24 years. But only on the market for about 8 years. What led you to move away from owning and operating a manufacturing enterprise to solely focusing on ProShop ERP?
Yeah, so I touched on that briefly at that early slide. So we started building ProShop in 2000 because we couldn't find any software that we thought was worth investing in our company. But quite honestly, we had no intentions of ever selling it to anyone else. It was just the system we were going to run our company with. And we like I was describing in the middle of the webinar, we just kept building modules and just kind of doing our thing, growing our business. And it wasn't until about 2009 where our biggest manufacturing customer actually saw ProShop. One of their guys actually came and worked for us on the weekends, and they approached us and said, "Hey, would you sell ProShop to us? Because it's way better than the system we're using." And that seemed pretty risky because we weren't a software company. We didn't really know anything about doing that. But yeah, we did actually sell it to them in 2009. And we brought on one or two other customers over the course of a few years, but it was through that period of time where we really realized that our ability to have an impact into this industry that we loved so much would be far greater as a software provider than we could making parts. And although, quite honestly, when I left the shop in 2016, I guess we sold it in 2014. Started the ProShop website in early 2016. I was a little skeptical that I was going to get super excited about it, to be totally honest. I love the process of making parts and, the beautiful things we created. But as I started realizing the personal impact that we would have on our customers, like Chad, I just went all in. Making parts is nice, and you make the buyer's day when you deliver good parts on time, but having an impact like on Chad's family is so incredibly rewarding. So anyway, that's maybe the long version of that answer of moving into software full time.
Okay, we're going to have one more question, and then we have some closing comments before we promptly close right at 4. So, Chad, did you have any false starts in making this leap? What was your final hesitation you had to overcome before going all in?
My final hesitation, I always tell Paul, my only regret for with ProShop is that I didn't do it sooner. I don't know necessarily looking back on it what my hesitation was. I know we looked at it for a year, right? Probably, cost maybe, fear of the unknown. But yeah, I would say probably those two things, right? Like, was the investment going to pay off? I can say without certainty, or with certainty, that it has. But yeah, I think probably just the fear of the unknown. I think it's good to be curious, right? I'm always, in the back of my mind, I always want to do the right thing the right way at the right time. Right. And, for me, it's getting my head wrapped around it. But yeah, being away from those production meetings certainly sped things up for me.
Well, thank you both, Chad and Paul, for the conversation today. I know it was very insightful for me, as well as the attendees. And also thank you to the attendees today. There will be a recording of this conversation, so that will be sent out within the next few days. Want to make sure that our attendees are aware of some MGA opportunities that are coming up pretty quickly. So I'm going to run through a few of those real quick before we formally close out. So one opportunity is a webinar as well as an in-person event called Sales at a Crossroad. This program identifies the threats to your margin and maps new routes to revenue. Attendees will understand market forces that are wreaking havoc on your margins and how to win now and in the future. The virtual event is November 11. There's also an in-person event on November 6th, in person in Troy on November 13, and then again virtually on November 8th. Another opportunity is called Perspectives. It's a CEO roundtable for emerging second stage companies. These are monthly CEO roundtable sessions. They're fast-paced, productive. They give actionable solutions for your pressing business challenges, including sales, HR, marketing, strategic planning, operational efficiencies, and of course, a lot more than that. The next roundtable will be starting on January 16th, and it'll run through June. Save the date for one more webinar on December 12th at 9 a.m. to learn more about MGA's newest program called the Smart Manufacturing Acceleration Program, which is providing you, the manufacturer, with expertise and guidance to take your Industry 4.0 journey to the next level. All of these events can be found on the MGA website at mgaalliance.org/events. And again, thank you to our presenters, Paul and Chad, as well as our attendees for participating today. Thank you both.